Today, we're out in nature and we're talking about one of my favorite topics, and that's moss. I love wintertime, but I will be honest with you, I struggle with this time of year. There is a part of me that wants to hibernate and not come out until spring. It's hard for me to understand because I do love this time of year. But every part of my body wants to stow away like a little bear cub in a winter den. I've learned not to fight it and just give my body what it wants, which is a lot of quiet time and doing creative projects that can bring nature inside. Moss is one of those exact things that I can bring inside and create a multitude of things that bring me joy all winter long. It's known that moss was the very first plant life force on Earth. They say that the algae is the lungs of the sea, and similarly, moss is like the HEPA filter for our planet. It works very hard at filtering our air. I have always been attracted to moss, or should I say, obsessed with moss. There is a serenity that I get looking at moss. The different greens, the multitude of textures makes it so fascinating. Today I wanted to shine a light on the gorgeous plant and share with you how I forage for moss, how I store moss, and some of the ways I use moss to bring nature to my surroundings and to fill it with serenity. When I go out searching for moss, usually all I have is a couple of plastic bags and maybe something like a cardboard box to put the bags in. Moss doesn't have roots, so you don't need to dig it up. I form a claw-like shape with my hand, and I pull gently and shake at the moss. This gets it free from whatever it's attached to. They have something called risers instead of roots. So you shake it and it helps to remove any dirt and debris and critters. If I'm sourcing more than one piece or one bunch of moss, I will layer the bunches in the bag with the dirt sides facing each other. You can see me here, I'm folding it over so the dirt sides are on the outside, and I will put it in the bag like that. This keeps your moss clean and ready for you when you're ready to use it. I'll tie a loose knot in the bag and then leave it until I need to work with it. This creates like a little greenhouse for your moss and keeps it nice and moist. I came across this puddle that had these water plants in it, and they were fascinating to me. And so I grabbed a couple to bring them home, and I will show you what I did with them back at home. As I was out foraging, I came across this crew and this little kitty cat just taking a walk. How cute is that? I try to keep an eye out for smaller objects that can accompany the moss, something that comes from its natural habitat. I'm going to take you to one more location, and then I'll show you how I store the moss once I get it home, and In some upcoming videos, I'm going to show you some projects of what I do with the moss to bring it into my surrounding and use it all winter long to bring that pop of green that you miss so much from the spring and the summer. One thing that's misunderstood about moss is that it's a plant and not a fungus, and it converts sunlight and dissolves soil minerals into energy it needs to grow and reproduce. So your moss really does like sunshine. It just likes the dappled sunshine, kind of like if it was under a tree. And it likes to be moist, but it doesn't like to be sopping wet. So a few things to keep in mind when you're caring for your moss. Now let's go back home and I'll show you what I do with the moss once I get it there. Okay, so we're back home and here's the haul. Now I want to stress that if you're making a little terrarium, you don't need as much moss as I have here. You need very little. But I am going to create several different projects, so I have a huge amount here. But if you want to store them longer term, then this is what I do. I use spag moss on the bottom of a clear plastic container. All you need is a thin layer, and then you want to water it down really well. And then you're just going to put a single layer of your moss to fill the entire box or container that you have. Then you're going to want to re-wet it and put the top on. And if you have more moss, you just repeat the steps for the rest of the moss. Okay, so say you want to dry your moss. Here's all you're going to need to do. You need a cardboard box and line it with some paper. It doesn't have to be plain paper. You can use newspaper. And you want to put one layer of moss per layer. And each layer is going to have paper in between it. And you can just set it in a dark place and let it dry out, and it will retain its green and its shape until you're ready to use it. And if you don't have a container or the sphagnum moss or any of that, all you have to do is just put it in a plastic bag and tie it loosely and put it in a partially sunny location, and your moss will stay moist and happy for quite some time. One last storage tip, and that's this Lucite container. All I do is put a little layer of the sphagnum moss on the bottom, and then I put a thin layer of the moss with varying texture in there. I give it a little water and I keep an eye on it. I close the lid, and that's it. It's a no fuss, no muss, easy terrarium anybody can do. It's the perfect little companion for your desk or a nook in your bedroom, countertop in the bathroom. I just think it's a fantastic idea. And as promised, I wanted to let you know what I did with those puddle plants. That's the only word I have for them because I have no idea what they are. If you do, leave me a comment below. I put them in this little compote, and added some spring water, and they are just thriving. Look at those roots. I mean, they are just thriving. They've grown double their size and height, and they just seem to like it. And I like them. I'm so enjoying them for as long as they'll have me. So thank you for coming along on this journey, this adventure with me, foraging moss. And I hope you'll stay tuned until next week when I show you how to make a gorgeous terrarium out of this moss that we foraged. And I am going to call it Garden of Eden. And so if you're intrigued and you want to find out how to do that in your home, come on back next week and I'll show you how. And a few parting words. If you're just like me and you have trouble with this time of year, then have compassion for yourself and just let it be. And know that this is just a season and the next one's just around the corner.